The Supermarine Spitfire endures today as one of the legendary fighter planes of World War II, and is the most famous British fighter aircraft in history. The Spitfire played its part in many of the crucial battles of the Second World War, giving the RAF the critical edge over the German Luftwaffe. The Spitfire was designed as a short-range, high-performance interceptor aircraft by R.J. Mitchell, chief designer at Supermarine Aviation Works. Mitchell pushed the Spitfire's distinctive elliptical wing, with cutting-edge sunken rivets, to have the thinnest possible cross-section, helping give the aircraft a higher top speed than several contemporary fighters, including the Hawker Hurricane. However, Mitchell never got to see the fame his creation would earn. He died of cancer in 1937 at the age of 42, whereupon his colleague Joseph Smith took over as chief designer, overseeing the Spitfire's development throughout its multitude of variants. The groundbreaking original design meant the plane could be upgraded with new engines and armaments. Designed around a 1,000 horsepower 12-cylinder, liquid-cooled Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the Spitfire first flew in March 1935. The British public first saw the Spitfire at the RAF Hendon Air Display on the 27th of June 1936. But it was not until August 1938 that mass-produced Spitfires began to enter service. By the outbreak of war, a year later, 9 Spitfire squadrons were equipped. In 1940, Hitler sent 2,600 Luftwaffe fighters and bombers to destroy the Royal Air Force during Battle of Britain. At the start of the battle, the Royal Air Force only had 640 fighters, Hurricanes and Spitfires, and German commander Hermann Göring confidently predicted that victory would only take a few days. Britain stepped up the production of fighter planes, building them much faster than Germany. 19 Spitfire squadrons were in service, with fighter command at the start of the battle, and fresh Spitfires were on their way. The Hurricanes, with their sturdy frames, took on the German bombers. The Mark I Spitfire, with their superior speed and agility, proved to be the only British fighter capable of meeting the German fighter Messerschmitt Bf 109E on equal terms. Often, the outcome of a combat depended more on the quality of the pilot than his aircraft. By the end of the battle, the better organized RAF had defeated the Luftwaffe and downed 1,887 German planes, at a loss of 1,023 planes. Even before the war began, Supermarine's engineers were refining the Spitfire's design, with the aim of making an improved version. This work gained a new urgency once war broke out. Arriving in February 1941, the Mark V became the most numerous Spitfire of the war, and Royal Air Force's leading weapon in the war for the skies above Europe. Between then and the end of 1943, 6,000 Mark Vs went into action, as part of over 140 RAF squadrons, and other units. Meanwhile, Supermarine was developing more capable versions of the Spitfire, driven by progressively more powerful Merlins. The 8303 machine guns gave way to 4 20mm automatic cannons, and by war's end the Spitfire had been produced in more than 20 fighter versions alone, powered by Merlins of up to 1,760 horsepower. The Mark V Spitfire was equipped with 8303 Browning machine guns, standard fighter weapons of the early war. But armor and self-sealing fuel tanks on German planes made heavier weaponry necessary. The Mark IX had 4 303 machine guns, and 2 20mm cannons, whose explosive shells could counter German protection. Fighter bomber versions could carry a 250 or 500-pound bomb beneath the fuselage, and a 250-pound bomb under each wing. In December 1944, Mark 14 Spitfires carried out the heaviest fighter bomber raid of the war, when they hit a German V-2 rocket facility. Much loved by its pilots, the Spitfire served in several roles, including interceptor, photo reconnaissance, fighter bomber, and trainer, and it continued to serve in these roles until the 1950s. The Spitfire also had an excellent range, improved by the use of disposable drop tanks to carry extra fuel. The Mark V had a range of over 1,100 miles, allowing it to support bombers on missions deep into the heart of Germany, to destroy enemy manufacturing and infrastructure. One of the Spitfire's most important contributions to Allied victory was as a photo reconnaissance aircraft from early 1941. Superior high-altitude performance rendered it all but immune from interception, and the fuel tanks that replaced wing-mounted machine guns and ammunition bays gave it sufficient range to probe Western Germany from British bases. In September 1941, Germany's deadly Focke-Wulf 190 fighter appeared in the skies over Europe. It could outmaneuver the Spitfire Mark V, and for nearly a year, was the most powerful fighter in the war. The arrival of Mark IX Spitfire in June 1943, a further improvement on the classic design, ended the FW-190's dominance. In late 1943, Spitfires powered by Rolls-Royce Griffon engines, developing as much as 2,050 horsepower, began entering service. Capable of top speeds of 440 miles per hour, and ceilings of 40,000 feet, the Mark 14s could pursue and destroy the V-1 rockets that Germany was starting to use to bombard Britain. The Spitfires defeated more than 300 of these deadly weapons, as they hurtled toward British cities. Spitfires were fitted with tail hooks and strengthened tail sections, known as Seafires, and operated from Royal Navy aircraft carriers from June 1942. These were built specifically for carrier duty, that had folding wings for easier storage. Ultimately, the Seafires would not be particularly well suited for carrier deployment, due to the narrow landing gear and elongated nose, that made landings difficult. Spitfires were used in the defense of Malta, in North Africa and Italy. They helped to provide air superiority over the Sicily and Normandy beachheads, and served in the Far East from the spring of 1943. The Spitfire would also serve in the air forces of nations like Poland, Belgium, Norway, and even the Soviet Union, which operated more than 1,300 of the planes, as both fighters and reconnaissance aircraft. It would eventually earn the distinction of being the most heavily produced British aircraft in history, with a total of 24 iterations finding their way into military service. It was also the only British fighter produced continuously throughout the war. Fighter versions of the Spitfire were dropped from RAF service during the early 1950s, while photo reconnaissance Spitfires continued in service until 1954. The Spitfire continues to be popular among enthusiasts. Nearly 60 remain airworthy, and many more are static exhibits, in aviation museums throughout the world. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support the channel, if you like the video.